Hello, quick just little reminder here. The only reason that this video is separated into two parts because YouTube wanted to be annoying and only have something set up through a phone number and not an email. That would have been much better for me personally, but now this is the second part, so this has the entire bit of the classroom part and then everything after the aftermath. So, welcome. This is Little Breadcrumbs. The classroom isn't desks with a projector and a whiteboard. It's a dinner table with chairs and a cord linked to a laptop to a TV that's about the same size as my laptop. And there is a whiteboard not attached to the wall, but it's just one of those ones on wheels. I'm not complaining, I'm just explaining so that you can imagine it in your own minds, as well as, my lovely image here. Um, Another big detail is that the kids were indeed 8 to 12 years old. But wasn't I told this earlier? And yes, I was, but I didn't just go on the internet looking up 8 and 12-year-olds to try and remember what they looked like. I used my poor imagination, which I was imagining like the 12 to 16 early teen compared to the preteens that they were. And this is very important because my lessons intro was slightly more for like a higher age group, and I didn't want to stress the kids out more than I already was. So I was definitely thrown off, and I couldn't use that little story that I had made, and I also couldn't use the full intro that I wanted. But in the meantime, it's grammar class. And I noticed some things that just didn't feel right. The sentences sounded more like a mythical fairy talking to me rather than some rando on the street. For example, one of the sentences is, if you're going somewhere in the present tense, and you're asking someone, the question is, where do you go? But in English, I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that. I'd say, where are you going? Do becomes are and go becomes in the presenting form. So I just, where are you going? But I wouldn't say, where do you go, my Prince Charming? Where do you go? It just sounds like I don't know, just, so I smiled at the sentence and the teacher was like, she gave me a curious look. What's so funny? And I was, oh boy. I made my comment on it and I didn't want to make a big deal out of it because it's her class and this is my first day here, but she erased what she had on the board, fixed it to what I said, and then she had her students change it. And this gives me more responsibility on my comments because I'm the only native English speaker there. So if I make a correction, I need to know exactly why something is the way it is, which is also pressuring. And eventually her class ended, and now it's my turn. And all I can think about is how absolutely cooked I am. I set up my things for the class and realized that I can't use half the material because they're just too young for the first note in the story. But I had a second note which was similar, and the usual intro was how I started, just the usual intro. Hello, this is me, and then I give them some of my background, but on the board, I wrote a little statistic. I have something. I needed something to lure the parents to stay because I know that after this point, it's all downhill from here. So on the board, I wrote that an X% of the world's people can speak a Y language, and then I explained that the world has 1.6% of Japanese speakers, making them the 13th most popular language, and then 13.8% of the world has Chinese speakers, making them number two, and finally 18.8% of English speaking makes them number one. And I was trying to explain the little like a little bit of a business sequence, but this is definitely above like the people who are learning the alphabet. And but I just thought they're, a little bit older. My mistake. But next was supposed to be the big note that I skipped, so maybe the kids may have understood it. I don't know, because I don't know how well their Japanese is, but I was way too nervous now. Basically, here would have been the translation. Pronunciation is the most important part of the language. Language is about understanding through communication, so even if you know the language perfectly, even if you can't say what you want, people will think you don't know the language, Sun Tzu, The Art of War. But when you have like I was gonna try and get to like more detailistic and then more of a heart-shaped feeling because most of this was targeting the parents. Let's be real. I was just trying to lure the parents with some good juicy, but I was too nervous, and these were little kids, so ooh. And the problem here is I skipped this, And I'm a person of order. So the moment I skip something is the moment that I just lose where I am. Like, I'm now like watching a butterfly is like, where am I? So part of, that part where I was going to ask for their names and the animal sounds would have been perfect, but I just forgot under more stress. I'm sweating at this point. So to do something, I wanted to pick the first student and then go around the table and see how well everyone knows the alphabet, like individually, one letter at a time. And the first student didn't understand what I was trying to say, so I wrote A, and then everyone at the table said A. And it's not what I was looking for at this point, but I just went with it. So I asked the whole group, what's next, and collectively they worked together to figure it out. And to my surprise, the students did really well, and I think that for the most part, they know the alphabet. But there is one big problem. The alphabet doesn't actually teach you pronunciation. The alphabet is for spelling. So I made some notes on the board and compared them to the alphabet, as well as which sounds were Japanese and which ones weren't. I didn't finish all the notes completely before moving on to the next note, and that was probably out of stress. And if I started getting too stressed, I would just kind of have them say the alphabet again, collect my thoughts, and then teach them something. You know. But to show my one of the things that I wanted to show was the vowels in English because there's generally like six and not including Y. Um, so to show the tones in English, I went from the highest to lowest tone using BT as reference words because BT has all six without any problem. So if we go through them, it would be bit, bet, bat, but, bot, and bought. In this example, the O and O, the OUGH, they're very close, but they're also like very different. So, if I'm talking about an AI bot versus I bought this, um, there are some people that say I bought this, and I think that if honestly, if you use them interchangeably, I don't think that most people will even notice, like at all. But there is technically a difference. Um, I wanted to get other vowels kind of like in there, but then I started getting out like I started stressing myself out again because there's the diphthong ones. But then I was like, oh. So I started getting stressed out. So what did I do? That's right. I said the alphabet to them again. But in the alphabet, I needed to make sure that they were. I had like a new goal in mind. This time I was gonna like, I wanted to make sure that they're pronouncing the F correctly because the Japanese say fu, fu, you know but they say it like they're blowing a candle. Um, and you kind of need your teeth on your lips because in English that's what you do in order to change the F into a V. And if you do it the way the Japanese are doing it, you can't. And that's why, well, it's not that you can't, it's just much harder. And that's why they don't pronounce the V. Getting to the end of the alphabet at this time, the boss had stopped me and she's asked me to say W. And as an even bigger surprise, because I was focusing on the kids, they're the students, and I'm the teachers. I'm focusing on them. I didn't even notice how differently the boss was saying it, and I spent like a whole minute trying to get the boss to say W, but it took the kids like two tries. So they're doing phenomenally well, I would say. Eventually, I kept doing this circle of stressing myself and going back to the alphabet till my 30 minutes was over. I mostly improvised the whole thing, but the boss and I both knew that it was definitely a mess at the first class, and all firsts of things are usually pretty messy. So, but she was like, "Hey, you, come here," and she pulled me aside, and I didn't know what she was gonna say, but she didn't say that I was fired. Instead she said that next time she's gonna give me a book to read to the kids, and it's like, oh, thank goodness I'm not fired. um, and then I should focus more on the alphabet. And she really likes to focus on the alphabet, and interesting. But I don't have a copy of the book she's gonna have me read. So I'm not sure what words or sounds will or will not be included. But I will read the book to them. You better follow what the boss says as a minimum, and then make some notes. I will say that the students are very good at listening and repeating, but I need to find a way to somehow chart what sounds each student can and cannot do. And then there are many sounds that the Japanese don't directly have or use, but these kids, like, they know some of them, right? So, like, there's the she, A, B, she's, but they know how to say C. But when they pronounce the V, they say it as a B. And that's normal in Japanese. So, it's whatever. But the main point is if I'm reading to these students, does that mean that the students can read? Or am I just making these sounds to give them exposure? I'm not sure about that yet. But if the students can read, then they really shouldn't be working on the alphabet because it's really for spelling. And if you're curious, there's about 13 to 18 sounds that are just not in the alphabet. And so if the students can read, they really should be working on something called syllable construction. So for my next class, I plan to make slides that have words and sounds, and I'll even rate how difficult they are, so that if a kid sees that it's difficult, it's okay that you can't get it, because like that all and bought compared to like the je and usually casual vision. That's a hard one, especially for little kids, especially from Japanese little kids. There's no way in their first or maybe even their third try they're going to get that one. But I finally met these students and I have a much better idea on their capabilities. So I think that my next class will go a lot smoother. If you're curious why there's 13 to 18, it's because some people disagree on what sounds are the diphthongs and then which are just sounds of like two sounds blended together. Um, like, because if it's a sound with two unique parts that are letters on their own, then is it really a new letter? Um, but anyways, there are the 13 sounds. There's the G, good. There's the NG in like sing. There's H in hello. There's the TH in think. There's the TH in the. There's the SH in I don't know shallow. There's the je. I mentioned that one earlier. Usually vision, and then they have some of the other wild vowels. The it and sit. The a and cat. The O and bot, the one I said earlier, the all and bought, the uh, A and day, and then like the oo and took. Those are the 13 just right off the bat. Those are just, good examples of just words that just they're not in the alphabet. And then she wants me to have them read it. But anyways, my next video will discuss syllables and the definition that isn't what most people think it is because it gets confusion with what I call entails because around the world there's a bunch of names. Consonant clusters, consonant sequence, consonant compound, consonant blending, but they're not blending. That's the problem. I just call them entails. Deal with it. And if you don't know what I mean, then I guess you'll just have to wait for the next video to come out. But that's my story for my first English class in Japan. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But thank you guys so much for watching. And without further ado,